Pax vobiscum. Welcome back to the channel, and to another episode of The Vestal Virgin Reads. Today we are going to continue our reading of Character, the Grandest Thing in the World by Orison Swett Marden. Today we will be reading Chapter 8, The Apollo Belvidere and Venus de Milo. These statues stand for symmetry, for an ideal. Is not every character to be formed upon a unique personal ideal? And is not every man a law unto himself, and making for himself a well-proportioned character? I wonder if ever a song was sung, but the singer's heart sang sweeter. I wonder if ever a hymn was rung, but the thought surpassed the meter. I wonder if ever a sculptor wrought, till the cold stone echoed his ardent thought, or if ever a painter, with light and shade, the dreams of his inmost heart portrayed. Yet the aim of every man, says Humboldt, should be to secure the highest and most harmonious development of his powers to a complete and consistent whole. This aim is sought for by aspiring youth, who are unable, perhaps, to analyze character any more than they can a rose, but they live straight onward, and develop a singular beauty of life without noting its stages of growth, or the law of its unfolding. In every painting of the masters there is one idea or figure which stands out boldly. Everything else is subordinate, and finds its real significance not in itself, but in pointing to the central idea. So in the universe of God, every object of creation is but a guide-board with an index finger pointing to the central figure, man. Man is the only great thing in the universe. All the ages have been trying to produce a perfect model. Only one complete human life, one ideal life, has yet been evolved. Is not life itself a fine art, and more difficult than sculpture, painting, music, architecture, or the creations of poetry? Do we not need to learn how to live? Apelles hunted over Greece for many years, studying the fairest points of beautiful women, getting here an eye and there a forehead, there a nose, here a grace, and there a turn of beauty, for his famous portrait of a perfect woman which enchanted the world. So the coming man will be composite, many in one. He will absorb into himself not the weakness, not the follies, but the strength and the virtues of other types of men. He will be a man raised to the highest power. He will be self-centered, equipoised, and ever a master of himself. His sensibility will not be blunted by violation of nature's laws. His whole character will be impressible, and will respond to the most delicate touches of nature. Did you ever watch a sculptor slowly fashioning a human countenance? Asks a modern teacher. It is not molded at once. It is not struck out in a single blow. It is painfully and laboriously wrought. It is a work of time. But at last the full likeness comes out and stands fixed and unchanging in the solid marble. So does a man carve out his own moral likeness. Every day he adds something to the work. I cannot see that you have made any progress since my last visit, said a critic to Michelangelo. But, said the sculptor, I have retouched this part, polished that, softened this feature, brought out that muscle, given some expression to this lip, more energy to that limb. But these are trifles. It may be so, but trifles make perfection, and perfection is no trifling. That infinite patience with which made Michelangelo spend a week in bringing out a muscle in a statue with more vital fidelity to truth, or Gerhard Dow made a day in giving the right effect to a dewdrop on a cabbage leaf, makes all the difference between success and failure. A man took a large, beautiful onyx to a noted artist to see what he could do to cover up a tinge of iron rust, which seemed to make the stone almost worthless. The artist engraved out of the blemish the figure of a lovely goddess. And so the successful man turns the commonest events, the homeliest things, into that which is beautiful in his life. And if he does it by a law of symmetrical development, Then love, charity, contentment, benignity, and cheerfulness will look out from the marble he works upon. Let youth be taught to look for beauty in all they see, and to embody beauty in all that they do, and the imagination will be active and healthy. If one loves beauty and looks for it, he will see it everywhere. If there is music in his soul, he will hear it everywhere. Every object in nature will sing to him. Life will be neither a drudgery nor a dream, but will become full of God's life and love. If you infuse into the purpose with which you follow the various employments and professions of life, no matter how humble they may be, the sense of beauty, pleasure, and harmony, you are transformed at once from an artisan to an artist. Any discontent you feel with the work you are compelled to do comes from your doing it in the spirit of drudge. Do it in the spirit of a master, with a perception of the beauty which inheres in all honest work, and the drudgery will disappear in delight. It is the spirit in which we work, not the work itself, which lends dignity to labor, and many a field has been plowed, many a house built, and a grander spirit than has sometimes attended the government of empires or the creation of epics. How few, even in this magnificent life gallery, where nature holds perpetual carnival of harmony and beauty, see anything of value except dollars and merchandise. As Emerson says, the farmer sees his bushel and his cart, and nothing beyond, and sinks into the farmer, instead of the man on the farm. Life is not mean. It is grand. If it is mean to any, he makes it so. God made it glorious. It is paved with diamonds, its banks he fringed with flowers. He overarched it with stars. Around it he spread the glory of the physical universe. Suns, moons, worlds, constellations, systems, all that is magnificent in motion, sublime in magnitude, and grand in order and obedience. God would not have attended life with this broad march of grandeur if it did not mean something. Ruskin tells us that the earth we tread beneath our feet is composed of clay and sand and soot and water, and he tells us that, if nature has her perfect work in these things, the clay will become porcelain, and may be painted upon and placed in the king's palace. Then again it may become clear and hard and white, and have the power of drawing to itself the blue and the red, the green and the purple rays of sunlight, and become an opal. The sand will become very hard and white, and have the power of drawing to itself the blue rays of sunlight, and become a sapphire. The soot will become the hardest and whitest substance known, and be changed into a diamond. The water in the summer is a dewdrop, and in the winter crystallizes into a star. Even so the homeliest lives, by drawing to themselves the coloring of truth, sincerity, charity, and faith, may become crystals and gems of purest rays serene. Every thought which enters the mind, every word we utter, every deed we perform, makes its impression upon the inmost fiber of our being, and the resultant of these impressions is our character. The study of books, of music, or of the fine arts is not essential to a lofty character. It rests with the workman whether a rude piece of marble shall be squared into a horse block, or carved into an Apollo, a Psyche, or a Venus de Milo. It is yours, if you choose, to develop a spiritual form more beautiful than any of these, instinct with immortal life, refulgent with all the glory of character. The power of great thoughts and grand sentiments to refine the face and manner, to lift man above his surroundings, is marvelous. We see this illustrated in the faces of great scientists, great reformers, and great statesmen. The body is but a servant of the mind. A well-balanced, cultured, and well-disciplined intellect reacts very powerfully upon the physique, and tends to bring it into harmony with itself. On the other hand, a weak, vacillating, one-sided, unsteady, and ignorant mind will ultimately bring the body into sympathy with it. Every pure and uplifting thought, every noble aspiration for the good and the true, every longing of the heart for a higher and better life, every lofty purpose and unselfish endeavor reacts upon the body, makes it stronger, more harmonious, and more beautiful. The influence of artistic work depicting character in sculpture or painting comes down to us from remote ages. We never weary of the antique forms of perfected beauty. Is Michelangelo dead? Ask the hundreds of thousands who have gazed with rapt souls upon his immortal works at Rome. And how many thousands of lives has he lived and reigned? There is, says Dr. J.R. Miller, always something pouring out from our lives, like heat from a flame or perfume from a flower. Many a life has been started on a career of beauty, and blessing by the influence of a noble act. Every true soul is impressed continually by the glimpses it has of loveliness, of holiness, or of nobleness in others. There are men and women in every country who conquer before they speak, and who exert an influence out of all proportion to their ability. And people wonder what is the secret of their power over men. It is natural for all classes to believe in and follow character, for character is power. When Raphael was a boy of 17, he went to study with the artist Perugino. It was discovered some time afterwards that soon after the apprenticeship of Raphael began, the style of Perugino changed. His work was chastened by an unexpected tenderness of feeling and candor of expression. His color acquired a brightness and sweetness of modulation unknown to him before, and this because a boy had come to be taught by him, and had thrown the influence of his life about his master's heart. Everyone, however humble, is daily and hourly altering and molding the character of all with whom he mingles, and exerting a power that will reproduce itself through countless generations. Our manners, our bearing, our presence, tell the story of our lives though we do not speak, and the influence of every act is felt in the utmost part of the globe. Has not every man that ever lived contributed something toward making me what I am? Has not the chisel of every member of society contributed a blow to the marble of my life, influenced its destiny? If we work upon marble, it will perish, said Webster. If upon brass, time will efface it. If we rear temples, they will crumble into dust. But if we work upon immortal minds, if we imbue them with principles, with the just fear of God and love of our fellow men, we engrave on those tablets something which will brighten through all eternity. Did you ever watch a sculptor slowly fashioning a human countenance? Asks a modern teacher. It is not molded at once. It is not struck out in a single blow. It is painfully and laboriously wrought. It is a work of time. But at last the full likeness comes out and stands fixed and unchanging in the solid marble. So does a man carve out his own moral likeness. Every day he adds something to the work. Now, admittedly, I could go back and completely reread this entire chapter if we were going to do the favorite quotes sort of thing, but I think that is what we are going to do, not reread the entire thing, but go to some of my favorite quotes and discuss those points, because there's nothing more I can say about this chapter. Written so succinctly, so well. He truly, and he being Orison Swett Marden, brings all together this whole concept of life, and how life is an art, and how each of us is our own unique slab of marble, and that it is up to us to carve our own moral likeness, while also acknowledging that we pick up scratches and dings and cracks, but also polishes and highlights and shines, as well as we go through life. And it is the various people around us that provide the good and the bad that does, in fact, add up to our character. So without further ado, we'll go through some of my favorite quotes and discuss from there, because otherwise I could sit here and talk for hours about this wonderful chapter. So my first favorite quote comes from page 44, and it says, Is not life itself a fine art, and more difficult than sculpture, painting, music, architecture, or the creations of poetry? Do we not need to learn how to live? And something about that final question, that do we not need to learn how to live, that life itself is a fine art. And when you do look at life, it truly is an art. There's no scientific way to synthesize down every single little thing in life to a point of control, and you can't explain everything that goes on in life either. Things happen, good things, bad things, annoying things. People affect us, people come and go, people stay with us for years, and some are only a fleeting moment. And life itself, our lives, how we encounter life, do we not need to learn how to live? What is living to us? What does that look like? And it is I think it is a question that each of us could spend some time sitting and ruminating over. Do we not need to learn how to live? Similar to sculpting, as Orison Swett Marden described many times in this chapter. Similar to sculpting, do you not need to learn initially how to pick up the chisel and begin going? And I think in that sort of metaphor that we do sort of receive instruction, or we are supposed to pass down a chisel, or at least an idea of how to begin carving by our parents, grandparents, friends, whoever affects us in our early years, for good or for bad. But do we not need to learn how to live? And I think that learning doesn't necessarily have to always come from outside sources, even though Orison Swett Marden does allude to the fact that, yes, outside entities, outside forces, other people do influence our character, whether we want to admit it or not. But do we not need to learn how to live? What does living look like? What does it mean to learn how to live? Again, a philosophical question that I think bears some ruminating over. And now for my second favorite quote. I guess maybe not necessarily a quote, it's an entire paragraph, but you'll have to excuse me. I believe I have to read the whole thing in order to be able to discuss it, so here we go. Also on page 44. Did you ever watch a sculptor slowly fashioning a human countenance, asks a modern teacher. It is not molded at once. It is not struck out in a single blow. It is painfully and laboriously wrought. It is a work of time. But at last the full likeness comes out and stands fixed and unchanging in the solid marble. So does a man carve out his own moral likeness. Every day he adds something to the work. What I particularly like about this quote is, again, the sort of allusion of sculpting to life in our life's journey, and the ability of ourselves to build our own moral character, our own moral likeness, how we want to see ourselves. This marble block, this sort of spiritual sculpting ability. It is not struck out in a single blow, it's not molded all at once, it is painfully and laboriously wrought, and this right here, it is a work of time. But there is an end state, there is an end sculpture that bursts out of the marble, and it is something that we built ourselves. And we discussed this before, how character is something that no one can take away from us. We are the ones who build our character, our respect. We are the ones who fashion our own lives, even though we have other influences. And we, as he says here, every day he adds something to the work. Every day we take on other influences, ideas, thoughts, but at the end of the day, the block of marble is our own. And it does take time and multiple influences and ideas and other such things to build that marble likeness of ourselves that we want to see. But what really struck out to me about this particular section, again, was it is not molded all at once, painfully wrought, not a single blow, it is the work of time. And I think that can speak to a lot of us, especially in an age of instant gratification, that good things come to those who wait, if you will, but also that patience truly is a virtue, because with patience we can build wonderful things, and with patience we can move past pain, we can move past hard work, and with patience we can truly build something beautiful. My third favorite quote from this chapter comes from page 45, and it is, "It is the spirit in which we work, not the work itself, which lends dignity to labor." And I find that quite interesting. I have my own thoughts about the merits of hard work and how work is actually a good thing for us, depending on, how you're treated and, other such things. But it is the spirit in which we work, not the work itself, which lends dignity to labor. And if we look at that through the lens of character, again, if you think about it, if you have a job that you, let's say, despise, and as Marden describes it, is full of drudgery, does it not make it worse if you go to work hating it every single day and you're not able to find at least one moment of happiness in the work at all? And even if you hate the job, and even if people are mean to you, to bring in a quote from the Bible, to come in and work, not this particular section, but to come in and work with a cheerful spirit, even though people hate you or are mean to you, or you feel down in the dumps yourself, in spirit of drudge, if you will. And now the quote, "You would heap burning coals on their head, if you will, if you worked with the spirit of happiness, or you worked with dignity. You took the spirit in which you work, and not the work itself or the atmosphere itself." And like Marden also says in the chapter as well, you find beauty in the mundane. You take the most common thing, the most homeliest thing, and turn it into something beautiful. You transmute it into something beautiful, and that is a brighter spirit than those around you. And like many things with character, you may not see instant rewards from you putting on this air or attacking, work or anything else with this sort of lively spirit or beautiful spirit, but you yourself, your own marble, will shine and sheen and be all the better for it. So, just my rambling thoughts about that. To sort of go on with the previous quote, on page 46, Marden quotes Emerson and says, "The farmer sees his bushel and his cart and nothing beyond, and sinks into the farmer instead of the man on the farm." And I think to this, we can sort of see this in ourselves, that again, sort of going back to the concept of work, if we see our work as drudge, if we see ourselves as nothing more than an accountant, nothing more than a sort of corporate slave where all we do is go to work and then we work and we're so tired and we come home and we're just this accountant, we can't be anything else. Sort of the thought of how labels can keep us down, because we form our mind, and as Emerson goes on to say, and we'll discuss this a little more, the body is but a servant of the mind, your spirit is but a servant of the mind. So if you keep telling yourself in this example, I'm nothing but a farmer, I'm a farmer, that is all I am, that is all my work is capable of, that is all I must do, that is the only goal I must look into, you forget that you are a man. You forget that you are a woman. You forget that you exist beyond what your job is, and you don't see the work, and work with a capital W, capital W, goodness gracious. You don't see the work that you do, the work that you are capable of, and that work is not just necessarily attached to your job, i.e. the farmer, instead of the man on the farm, instead of the sculpture on the farm, the block of marble on the farm, constantly being carved and polished and cracked and shined. You don't see your own potential, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. And the farmer sees his bushel and his cart and nothing beyond, and sinks into the farmer instead of the man on the farm. So essentially growing stagnant, and if all you see is just one tiny little thing in front of you, and I'll pull in this other quote before the one that I just said was my favorite, but so they're both technically my favorites, but how few, even in this magnificent life gallery, where nature holds perpetual carnival of harmony and beauty, see anything of value except dollars and merchandise. So again, to add to that, there are things that are beautiful and things worth your work and labor, that are not just physical, that are not just, dollars and merchandise and the things you hold in your hand. There are other things that you can build. Let's see, and I'm going to save my ultimate favorite quote for the sort of end scene, if you will, of this video, but we'll move on to the next one. So my next favorite quote is found on page 47, and reads, "It rests with the workman whether a rude piece of marble shall be squared into a horse block, or carved into an Apollo, a Psyche, or a Venus de Milo. It is yours, if you choose, to develop a spiritual form more beautiful than any of these, instinct with immortal life, refulgent with all the glory of character." What I like about this quote is that, again, Marden puts the power back with us to shape our own lives, and not necessarily in this raw, self-empowering, I'm manifesting. Not quite like that. This is more of at least the way that I sort of read it in my own mind, is a caution and an inspiration and sort of call to arms of, it is yours if you choose to develop. No one can develop your character for you. No one can carve your own marble block but you. It is your power and your influence over your own marble block and your own character. It is yours if you choose. And I think we see this a bit today, and mostly for all time too, but it is up to us to take those first steps of discipline, or first steps towards, let's say, a common example is healthier eating, working out, treating your friends better, calling your parents every night. Truly, it is up to you to take those steps to foster actual change. We might pick up influences from other people, but ultimately, if we want a better life, or a more beautiful spiritual form, or any goal that we want to achieve, it is yours if you choose. Another good quote from page 47, "The body is but a spirit of the mind." And we could go down into another rabbit hole. I think we've sort of discussed this topic a little bit already, but how true it is. The body is but a servant of the mind. That is why you've seen a lot of talk, or at least I have, the concept of negative self-talk. And I think we can take that concept of negative self-talk and connect it to the quote from Emerson about how the farmer sees his bushel and cart and nothing beyond, and sinks into the farmer. Sort of same thing with negative self-talk. If you continuously tell yourself that I can't, I won't be able to, I can't do this because, sort of bringing yourself down, making excuses for yourself, fears of failure. The body is but a servant of the mind. And if you tell yourself that you can't possibly be healthier, you can't possibly be better or more beautiful or anything else, then your body will reflect this. And Marden goes on in that paragraph to discuss that, about how when you pursue things that are good, that is, a longing of the heart for a higher and better life, or a lofty purpose for unselfish endeavors. He talks about how beauty and strength and harmony comes to you naturally, because, again, your mind is pursuing good things, and therefore your body wants to rise to meet the mind, versus if you are weak or unsteady, or you don't choose to try to expand your horizons, your body will also reflect that which your mind is not doing. So, sort of an interesting comment, and we've heard this a lot, but again, the body is but a servant in the mind. One sentence, but how true it is. And now for my final quote before I end with my favorite paragraph of the chapter. Oh goodness, I can't speak. Excuse me today. Found on page 48. Every one, however humble, is daily and hourly altering and moulding the character of all with whom he mingles, and exerting a power that will reproduce itself through countless generations. One thread that I saw throughout this chapter, and that we'll sort of dive into here and pick at, is this concept of a sort of immortality mixed with the butterfly effect, mixed with the influences of others. And you've heard many stories before of she got in with the wrong crowd, or he started hanging around the wrong people, or be careful what media you consume. Watch out for the music you listen to, the TV shows that you watch, and other things, because they do influence you. And here, everyone, however humble, is daily and hourly altering and moulding the character of all with whom he mingles, and exerting a power that will reproduce itself through countless generations. Outside things do influence us, no matter how much we want to try and say that they don't. They do, unfortunately, even if we don't want them to. And we must remember that, at least according to this quote, and I'm sure you know it as well, that how we act to someone, or what we do with our lives, or the actions that we do, have ripple effects. And Marden says here, a power that will reproduce itself through countless generations. We can never know what one action or inaction or anything that we do, how it will affect others. We can only control what we do, purely. But it does take some thought and some, inspiration to try and become a better version of ourselves, knowing that the work that we put into ourselves ultimately could actually go on to influence the world around us. And sort of the caveat to that too is that if we don't put any work into ourselves, we don't work on our marble block, and we just leave it to rot and mold out in the sun and rain and storm, that also has an effect on those around us. So not necessarily something to sit there and say, oh, you must agonize over every choice and every action and inaction. It's more of a cautionary tale of be careful how you work on your own block, because the chips and pieces that come flying off of it, or the things that you hit with your chisel as you swing about working on your own block, affects all the others around you who are doing the same. And so with those rambling thoughts about this chapter, which again, I've rambled on here for quite a while, even though I said, I can't possibly say anything more about this chapter, but let me know what you thought of this chapter, because I was absolutely hanging on to every word, and I felt like I was having a eureka moment every other paragraph. He just says everything sort of so perfectly, and in a way that I was sort of thinking about in my own mind, and apparently today I can't seem to get out of my mouth. But I'd like to finish today's episode with my favorite paragraph in the chapter, one that I thought was hopeful and powerful and wonderful, and I hope that it gives you some inspiration and comfort as well. So to quote from page 46, "Life is not mean. It is grand. If it is mean to any, he makes it so. God made it glorious. It is paved with diamonds, its banks he fringed with flowers, he overarched it with stars. Around it he spread the glory of the physical universe, suns, moons, worlds, constellations, systems, all that is magnificent in motion, sublime in magnitude, and grand in order and obedience. God would not have attended life with this broad march of grandeur if it did not mean something." Pax vobiscum. Goodbye.